Hey, guess what, in Soccer We Trusters? We finally have a game to preview. 2 months after the January camp ended, we finally have a meaningful 90 minutes to discuss. So hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Yes!
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the American Outlaws' favorite podcast at Soccer We Trust.
I'm Jimmy, Trash Can Crew Cheese, Conrad, also known as Jim, alongside Hollywood Harry, also known as Heath Pearce. And Harry, if you can chucking believe it, we are chuckless today since Charlie Chuckwagon Davies is hard at work getting the new 24/7 soccer channel, the CBS Sports Galazzo Network, off the ground, especially as it pertains to his new morning footy show, which will run every weekday live from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. And then I'm sure we'll re-air a little later for the West Coast audience as they wake up. And that is super exciting. Anyway, Heath, any thoughts on Chuck not being here?
That is a wee bit early for me. I'm a morning person, but I'm going to have to watch the reruns most of the time. But I'm super stoked about just having, again, that destination for morning television. When I think about, it's a little bit indicative of where I'm at with my life, having young kids and stuff. But that TV is cranking when I wake up in the morning before getting the kids to school, for me, just getting caught up on things. So I can't wait to watch that. But without Chuck being here, more words for us, Jimmy. So many more words for us that you even have
share airtime.
Yeah, so many more words for us that you even have them written on your T-shirt today. That's how many extra words we get.
You love it. You love it. You love it. All right, we're looking ahead though, with regard to today's show, to Friday's game against Grenada, as the U.S. returned to competitive action for the first time since the World Cup, if you're, I guess, FIFA sanctioned competitive action. We'll have team news, of course, lineup predictions, and a whole bunch more. Make sure, if you're on the YouTubes, hit like and subscribe, turn on your notifications. We're going to have a live show following the Grenada game to have a full recap, so make sure you join us for that. If you're listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, make sure you download, follow, leave a 5-star review. We'd really like that. Just makes us look cooler to the people that are pulling the strings here. And then word of mouth. We want you to share this with as many people as you possibly can as we continue to build more and more in Soccer We Trusters. This is an amazing community, and we love the loyalty in the community that we are building. Also, while I have your attention, we are finalists in the soccer category for the Sports Podcast Awards, and we need your help. So please take a minute out of your day to vote. Link is in the description. We are trying to put a trophy in the trophy cabinet. We are currently empty. We need a little validation for all the hard work and sacrifice that we're putting into this to have a fun show so we can continue to do it as we run up to the 2026 World Cup. So please vote for us. We are begging, please. But or don't. Or don't. It's fine. Or don't. It's fine. So Heath, before we get into this though, and I'm going to get into the Nations League overview, our U20s just played. So our US U20s, with some tremendous players in the team, have 3 friendlies before they play in the FIFA U20 World Cup, okay? And they're playing France today. They lost 4-0, everybody, and I watched a good portion of it. Not a great result. They play England a couple days from now, and then they play the U21s from Serbia a couple days after that. And so it's
judge us against those. Like, France is the one. It's literally the one country where I'm like, these France could also be 17 and 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds that literally have been playing first team football for years, and their pipeline is insane. Like, France isn't talking about we're good at youth development, because they are youth development. All their first team in the national team has a bunch of top young players. So that next tier of top young players aren't getting into the national team. They're playing for the U20s right now, and they are nasty.
They are nasty. It was 1-0 at half to France. They had missed the penalty wide to start the second half. We had missed the penalty to make it 1-1. And then they scored on a set piece to make it 2-0. And then we just kind of fell apart. We created a lot of good chances, in fairness to our guys. I mean, Gaga Slanina started in goal. You had Quinn Sullivan, Kevin Paredes, who we talk about a lot, Paxton Aronson, Jonathan Gomez, Diego Luna, Puxas up top. I mean, we had guys that we are counting to be the next wave of superstars for our national team.
Can't get beat like that.
They got run over by France.
Good,
and so it's something
team,
about
can't get beat like that.
Yeah, 4-0. That's going to be a nice eye-opening, let's say, post-game for Mikey Varas, the U20 coach, and for the rest of the squad. So hopefully they can build off of that. You want to get that out of your system, though, before the World Cup starts. But I wanted to mention that because I thought that there were some really good moments, and I saw some really good sequences from our players. And if we had our finishing boots on, I think it could have been 4-2, 4-3 kind of game. I think there was pretty wide open, but we got to lock things down defensively. I still feel like defending's a lost art, and I saw a little bit of that on display or a lack thereof into that one. All right, let's talk a little Nations League. Just want to catch everybody up, Heath, because at times this is getting a little confusing. But I'm going to do like overview stuff. So there are 3 leagues, ultimately, A, B, and C, and there's promotion relegation between A, B, and C. These are countries. And then at the C level, you have like the small, like St. Lucia is in C. And you have to do a couple things to get up to the next group or next league, blah, blah, blah. But the U.S. is in League A. Okay, and there are 4 groups. If you win your group, then you qualify for the Nations League semifinals, which is what we did last time. We're the defending champions of this competition. And then you play it out into their final. Those games will happen in June. And right now, we currently sit second. Now, if you get second in your group, you qualify for the Gold Cup. So there are a couple different things that are happening. Now, Jamaica looks like Jamaica's on top of Group A over Mexico right now. So it's really between those two. Panama and Costa Rica are battling out for the top spot in Group B. Honduras and Canada and Curacao still has a chance there in Group C. And then for us, El Salvador is actually on top, even though we have a game in hand. And then we're in second on 4 points. They have 5, El Salvador, and Grenada has 1. We've played Grenada 4 times in our history, and we've beaten them all 4 times. Most recently, we beat them in the first Nations League game back in June, which has been a while, 4-5-0. So it's looking like it's going to be one-way traffic here, Heath. But I wanted to get everybody caught up just in terms of what the Nations League means and how it has implications on the Nations League semifinals and final, of course, and then obviously the Gold Cup too.
No, I think that's great context. Obviously, the game in hand really means nothing if you don't use it, right? To your advantage. I think our win, a win over Grenada is expected. I think we should have control of that game. But you know how some of these games can be, Jimmy. I generally remember playing games where we were the significant favorite. And generally we controlled those games from start to finish at the national team level. I remember one that was a tight one, but we played Barbados in the qualifying, beat them 8-0. And we had the second leg where they had to beat us 9-0 to knock us. It was when there was randomly FIFA changed all those things last minute, and we had to qualify in that random home and away playoff to get into the final round when it was a single final round. And we ended up, I think it was a 1-0 win, but they hit the crossbar like 3 times. Like, it was a long grind of a game, but this one is significantly different in terms of the pressures. And so I expect the U.S. to be able to comfortably control the game from start to finish. And then also just play entertaining, play the way in which they want to play, and also get a result, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. I think there is some conversation that needs to be had, and we'll get into specific starting positions and who we want to see in the starting 11 later on in the show. But I think I want to talk a little bit overall in terms of aesthetics and what we want to see out of this particular group of players, especially because 23 of them are European based and 1 is MLS based, and that's Miles Robinson. Now, this game is happening.
It's an exotic roster.
It's very exotic. The game is in Grenada, okay, the island nation of Grenada. They're playing at the Karani James Athletic Stadium. It holds 8,000 people, and I expect that to be completely full and raucous. So that should be fun and a good challenge for our players. They're currently led by not easy. Led by manager Anthony Nixon Modeste. He's a 47-year-old retired defender who played for the senior national team for Grenada back in the day. And they've got some good players that are sprinkled around, and they're going to sit back and counter. That's probably going to be their modus operandi in this one, and not a big surprise. But walking into this, Heath, let's just talk overall, and then I want to get into a couple things that Tim Reams said, and get an update on Brian Reynolds a little bit, who had a good interview with American Soccer Now. And so,
was that a sanctioned interview, or is he going to get in trouble for speaking?
Good question. Good question.
You know, you get in trouble. You get in trouble. You speak outside. You go outside without approval. You get in trouble.
Yeah, Michael Cameraman will be locking you down from that point forward. So, what do you, as a fan, want to see out of this game from the U.S. or even if it's not player related, it's Anthony Hudson, the interim manager. what do you want from him? It's a really weird time because whatever you're trying to implement as a coach doesn't necessarily mean that whoever takes over is going to try to implement the same types of things.
Yeah, I think this is a hard one, right? And we talked about this. It's a competitive match away from home, and there is a significance to it. So part one, just like every national team game of significance, get the win, right?
Right.
And that tightens a little bit of the way in which you play. Yes, you're playing. You're the huge favorite in this one, but it's about being like, again, I go back. I know people are probably annoyed of us saying this, but a lot of these games that you play away from home, a lot of it's about discipline, right? Doing the work, working together, being on the same page as your team on how we transition, how we defend in our blocks, where we want to win the ball, where are we finding these advantages that we think that we can capitalize on that will already give us that edge. That's part one. But then part two, in possession, if they're going to sit back and bunker, how are we actually taking chances? When are we choosing our moments to be creative and show a little bit of that flair that we've seen from this generation that I'm afraid we're going to lose if we make it too rigid of a system, right? Where you only overlap when there's certain types of triggers, right? How do you actually create this combination play? Trust the first touch, trust the touch and the technique of the players around you, trust the flow of the game, and play with an attractive style of play. But again, it's so hard. As I say that, I even start to tell myself, like, let's start with getting the win, because that'll put us in a good spot. But secondarily, I want to see that we've got a really quality roster of players here. Let's see us take some chances. Let's see us actually. A lot of these players are playing in clubs where they're going to have to break down low blocks, right? From time to time. So I don't want a low block to be this extreme example of everybody bunkers against us, and it's so hard to break down, because it is hard to break down. But you and I, Jimmy, used to spend hours one day a week where you have to defend with 5 against 7 or 8 players, and you can make those 7 or 8 players suffer for a long period if you're organized, right? It is hard to break it down, but eventually they find where those holes are, they find those gaps, and they start scoring goals on you in training. And so that's what I want to see, is that sort of in-game management and thinking of taking what the game gives you and being able to iterate on that as the game goes on, whether it's fatigue, whether it's openings, whether it's recognizing, oh, there might be something here, and taking those risks.
Okay, now they have another game against El Salvador in Orlando on Monday. We'll obviously be doing a preview for you guys and a recap for you. So make sure, again, you turn on your notifications no matter where you're picking up this podcast to make that happen and be a part of the festivities, especially if you want to come live with us. It's always fun when we're super emotional, though I don't think we're going to be too emotional in this one. Now, I wonder in terms of balancing the squad.
Unless Taylor Booth balls out, then I'll be real emotional. I
will be emotional. That'd be pretty exciting. In terms of balancing the squad, I mean, you bringing in all these players, most of them are flying great distances to be there. Do you roll out your quote unquote of these collection of players, your B squad against Grenada, and roll out your A squad against El Salvador? I wonder. We can get into that a little bit as we start to discuss this. I did want to go back, though, because Tim Ream has also done an interview. Whether it's been sanctioned or not is something completely different. And then we got to talk about Folarin Balogun as well, dropping out of the U21 England camp. But this is what Tim Ream said on Greg Berhalter. Yeah, I think for us players, I think bringing Berhalter back is a familiarity. It's the togetherness that he brought to the team after it was very much kind of sporadic and fractured. When he first came in, and I think Tim is referencing after we didn't qualify for 2018. When he first came in, it was a big transition with a lot of new guys coming into the program. I think he did a fantastic job in that aspect, and he laid very, very good foundations for the team. I'm not done. Tim Ream continues. Whether he comes back or not is for us as players, is not for us as players. I've said this previously. It's not something we really worry about or concerned about, because it's not our job to hire for that position. I wonder if he knows that we also don't have people in position to hire occurs. But if they bring him back, obviously we'll continue to work under him. If they don't, we'll continue to work under somebody else. And that's just the nature of what we do as players. That's the nature of the sport. Sometimes there's continuity. Sometimes there's change, and we'll roll with whatever happens. And Tim Ream should run for goddamn office. That's a very diplomatic answer.
It is.
So any thoughts on this and Tim Ream on Greg Berhalter? I think that this is a good, mature response to this question, ultimately.
Yeah. What do you want from Tim? He was left out of the cycle all that time and then went to a World Cup. So on one hand, you go, oh yeah, Greg overlooked him all this time. And then on the other hand, you're like, you went to a World Cup, man. Like, and you played well, and you're probably one of our, when I was thinking about who do you put in our lineup first in these upcoming games, Tim Ream. Like, he's got the maturity, he's got the experience, he's got that overcoming of adversity. But when I think about those quotes, it's a good diplomatic answer but it's also the truth. He didn't beat around the bush of the answer. The reality is it's not his job to decide. When Tim Ream got called in leading up to the World Cup, did he maybe have conversations with Greg that were tense, or did he maybe refuse to go? Or I have no idea. But he got called in. He performed well. He did really well. And now he is, again, at least for me, one of our first that I put into the lineup, regardless of his age, because we need that experience on the field. So when I think about that answer, it's true. You call either he continues or he doesn't. And we're going to keep getting on with the work. I don't think you're going to see like a team protest if Greg Berhalter were to get the job again. And I also don't think you would see the team protest if a new coach gets the job. You get on with it. It's a national team. It's not a club team. It's very, very different. So I think it's a good answer.
Okay, and I appreciate you
until
saying that
new coach doesn't bring him into the first camp and says, "Hey, man, we're moving past you."
Yeah, you're 35, bro. It's time to move on. But I would say that I like that point of you saying that this is the national team and not a club team, because I think I'm going to use that as it pertains to building my lineup, which we'll get into in a little bit. Don't worry. I do want to talk about Folarin Balogun, though, because he just dropped out of the U21 England squad. And I know that he put a cryptic message on social media about going where he's appreciated and so on and so forth. I think what's interesting is that England didn't call him in. Gareth Southgate, the manager, didn't call him in. And he was upset about that. That's when that post came.
thought that was about the national? I thought he maybe had a breakup with a girl or something.
Well,
like
that could be possible. That could be. It feels like a breakup.
Yeah.
But,
Jimmy,
but
you can't just connect that to a non-call.
I can and I will. I can and I will. Okay.
I've been misreading his messages for months now. I got to go back and.
So Marcus Rashford and Mason Mount drop out of the England squad, both attacking players. Rashford probably more like for like, obviously, with Balogun and Mount, but still 2 attacking players. And Gareth Southgate elects not to call in anybody, which makes me seem like Gareth Southgate's actually trying to do us a goddamn favor by giving us Folarin Balogun. And then after that doesn't get called in, he then drops out of the England U21 squad, even though his club in France, Reims, says that was injury-free. So you wonder what's happening there. Now, he's got 17 goals to his name in Liga in 28 matches so far this season. He was born in New York, Folarin Balogun, to Nigerian parents, but he grew up in England. So he could play for Nigeria. There's still like this outside shot that the Super Eagles could come in and swoop for Folarin Balogun, which would be so heartbreaking for us here, because we feel like there's a nice position ready for him to go that nobody's really put their stamp on and owned, even though we have guys tap dancing around it. Maybe Daryl Dike will be that guy over these 2 games to really start to own it. But any thoughts on Folarin Balogun, and you think he's inching any closer to the U.S.?
Gotta be. He's got to be. I mean, he's 21 years old. He's in the form of his life, Jimmy, as your T-shirt says. But he can dribble and he can score. And so it's a tough situation because he's probably going through it in his mind. He was probably thinking, "I'm going to play for England, and I'm going to go prove by going on loan out of away from Arsenal that I can prove it." Arsenal hasn't shown any reason to bring him back in or any sort of willingness. Like, he's probably going through all that, saying, "Guys, what else do I have to do to prove that I can play at Arsenal and to prove that I can play for the England national team?" Now, we know England's got a deep roster, it always will, of strikers, so it's going to be a tough go no matter where he goes if he went that route. But I think it's certainly illuminating his potential decision to come play for the U.S. And I do think this is a case of holding out because he wants to play for England. England is a much bigger national team than the U.S., a much more historic national team than the U.S. So if I was in that situation and it was like for like, and I grew up in this, and my heroes played for England, whatever, that's what I would want to do. Now, if that door closes or doesn't seem like there's a pathway there, then you play for the U.S. It doesn't make you less American or anything like that. But I think that's probably becoming more and more
like an option
clear of him. But I also think that it's going to be an amazing option for him if he decides to go that route. If you look at our crop of players all around the same age as him, plus minus a couple of years, and having the next few years to be potentially our number 1 up top is incredible. Makes me wonder, though, are we going to play with 1 up top? If we end up developing all these strikers, we're going to play with 2 up top. What are we going to do?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I'm excited about the future, and that's going to lead us into predicting our lineup right after our first break of In Soccer We Trust. So do not go anywhere. We're going to give you our starting 11s for this first game against Grenada in the Nations League right after this.
absolutely magisterial here.
Artilharia do Campeonato Brasileiro.
Colpisce ancora. Golazo.
Oh, baby. Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. And Heath and I want to let you know that this show is more than a YouTube-first podcast. It's a community. Now you can rep that community with official In Soccer We Trust gear, only found on the Paramount shop, baby. Discover t-shirts, mugs, sweatpants, laser engraved pint glasses. So if you want to shoot a shot like Chuck does when he's on his yachts, make that happen. Get hats, water bottles, and more to show your friends and family what's up. So right now in Soccer We Trust listeners, you'll get 20% off your order, when you use this podcast exclusive code SOCCER20 during checkout. That's SOCCER20. And it's only available for our listeners. Head over to paramountshop.com/collections/ hopefully everybody's writing this down, in-soccer-we-trust, and shop now. Was that a tongue twister? You goddamn right it is. We want to make sure you earn anything you order for In Soccer We Trust. All right, Heath.
Mm-hmm.
We're chuckless today, so it's just me and you breaking down the U.S. men's national team and their big game against Grenada here in the Nations League. 5th of 6 match days. The 6th one will be in Orlando as the U.S. take on El Salvador. We'll obviously have something special planned in preview and recapping for that. But we're talking Grenada, and I want to get into our starting lineup. Now, I do want to mention something you said earlier in the show, and I'm going to reiterate.
Please don't. Unless
I'm
it was
going
something
to. No,
really
it's
smart.
important.
That's
You said
really
this is a national team. It's not a club team.
Oh, yeah, that was really smart. You can repeat that.
It's really smart, and I think that is the lens that I'm seeing things through, because as I started to put my lineup together, the one player that really stands out for me is Sergino Dest. Mm-hmm. Do we give him the opportunity as a national team, be like, hey, he hasn't played in a while. Let's get his confidence back. Like, I know that there's room for that potentially in a friendly, and I know that we could say, oh, Grenada this, Grenada that, but I want to put this in or plant the seed with everybody about precedent. Do we use the national team? Do we set this precedent that it doesn't matter if you were our first choice at some point along the way, that you automatically get your start or spot if you're not playing? He hasn't played in 2 months. So I wonder about that and the precedent that sets to the group. If you say, well, as long as you have a big name and you did something for us in the past, it doesn't matter if you've played in the last couple months or not. We're still going to go with you. And I that feels more club team-esque and not national team-esque. And so I wanted to start the conversation there, because I think that's going to impact and influence how I would like us to start in this game. But I'll let you go first, because Matt Turner falls into that too. He hasn't played much lately, and when he did, he didn't look super sharp. So but it would be weird for that one, because he started for us in the World Cup. I don't know. It feels different in the goalkeeper position, and now I feel like I'm undermining what I just said, but I wanted to get your overall thoughts on that first.
This is like the Two Sides of Jimmy show, you know.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Jimmy versus Conrad.
Yeah. I like that. No, I think, when I think about Sergino Dest, and we can get into the lineups soon of projected. When I think about a team that's probably going to sit back against us, I don't think they plan to press us. I don't think they plan to be exposed against us. I think they plan to use their advantages in the fashion that we've seen the U.S. struggle in. Makes me wonder, are we better at breaking down low blocks by playing with 3 in the back? The problem with 3 in the back is that you're actually adding another defender to your back line, and you're taking away another attacker in a weird sort of way, right? As opposed to a 4. So you're where we are best is in the attack. We're adding another forward, but we're also adding another defender. Does that make sense? So we don't have like a 2-striker system. So I'm wondering where that goes. The point being is that Sergino Dest in a 3-5-2 could be really good, or a 5-3-2 if you want to call it. We'll call it 3-5-2 because we're playing a little more aggressively. Or in a back 4, I think he could also be that guy. But if you're Joe Scally, you're kind of wondering, like, well, what do I got to do? Does form play a role in this? Does whatever? And so I think you've got to see Sergino Dest, who I know has been in from day one because he doesn't make match day rosters anymore. See how he trains. What's his sharpness like? What's his fitness like? What are the things that he's doing to show that you're ready to step into a national team game, regardless of opponent, and be impactful, right? Because we've seen Sergino Dest also have some bad games for the U.S. in terms of sharpness in his passing, being on the same page, using the tools that he is far better than any other player that we have in our national team pool to his advantage, right? Defending is always, hit or miss. And then what is he doing in the attack that makes him dangerous for us? So I think it's on the fence, and it's about looking at his first couple of days in training and saying, is he there or is he not? Because you know how far you can fall, Jimmy, as a player when your club situation is not right. This could be a good booster for him.
I get it.
Also, not necessarily be the
but let's imagine us back in camp. Let's say I'll just say a name that I think you're familiar with. Johnny Bornstein. Say he hadn't played in a couple months. You're playing out of your goddamn mind for your club, or you're being really solid. And let's say Joe Scally in particular is outplaying an Austrian international to get more meaningful minutes for his club with Borussia Mönchengladbach. And that's you. And yes, Bornstein played in the World Cup and he was fine for us. Okay, I thought he was defensively.
I'm putting on these sunglasses so you're just attacking me with words, Jimmy. So like I'm just making sure these things knock down any.
But I mean, how would you receive that message if it didn't matter how you were playing?
I mean, that's always the case with the national team, right? When you're in a club environment and you do it day after day after day and it's undeniable, then there's things that go on with that. But when you come into the national team and if you're playing in top form, you have to have that open and honest conversation. But we all know, like.
I mean, I remember playing like if Landon Donovan was healthy, he was going to play.
Yeah,
right.
It didn't matter if he
non-starters. I get
had
that.
Starts and whatever.
If DeMarcus was healthy, Clint Dempsey was healthy, those guys were going to play. Like
you learn that life's not fair, and especially when you get to you learn that at the club level first and foremost, right? You're in an environment where if you're a guy and you were a national team guy when you were playing, Jimmy, it wasn't going to matter how you trained at your club, right? You were going to start. You were gonna wear a band. You provided things that if you were in bad form or whatever, you were gonna play. If somebody else thought that they were in great form or weren't getting the chances, that's gonna be their perspective of a player like you at the club level. But at the national team level, you can add a few guys that maybe aren't playing every single game week in and week out. Christian Pulisic, an example. But then on the flip side, you had the Gio Reyna example coming into the World Cup playing games and then not playing. So it's like the undeniable things are really hard to weave into the narrative of the national team. And it's also not the national team's job to right.
Which gets back to what I was saying before, club versus national team. So answer me this. And for anybody listening, you can chime in as well. We'd appreciate that. Hit us up on Twitter, ISWT pod. Hit us up in the comments right now. Do you feel like that the proper evolution for a national team, proper sounds pretty dramatic, but we want to evolve into a national team where there's competition for every spot. Like there isn't that we don't have that anymore. Mm-hmm. Now I know that with England, Harry Kane is probably the best example I can think of at the moment where if he's healthy, even if he hasn't played in a while, he's the captain. He's probably going to start, right? So, okay, there are going to be a few exceptions, but wouldn't it be cool to have a team where, hey, if you're not playing well, you're not in. That's the precedent. If you're not playing, not even if you're not playing well, if you're not playing at all, that just feels like such a big reach to be like, okay, cool. Well, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I think it
doesn't matter. You're back in, right? I mean, isn't that where we want to evolve into?
And that's why when I think about Sergino Dest, you bring him in and you go, if this guy is not literally at the level his peak level, you're not bringing him in again until his situation gets cleared up. That's I don't think you lose.
I understand why you brought him in, but now I'm talking about why you're starting him as opposed to somebody who would be quote unquote in form.
Oh yeah, but if he's showing that like he is at his peak level and he's just for whatever reason his club situation is not working out, that's different. That's an eye, that's a gut, that's the staff, that's your GPS of showing like, is this guy actually in shape or not? Is he doing the work to keep his fitness and all these things? You can make a calculated and also a gut decision on where a player's at with that, and I think you can trust that. And if he doesn't do that, then he's not. Then he shouldn't be called in until he gets his situation right. I do think that you can maybe have one player like a Christian Pulisic, who is a bona fide star playing at a massive club, not getting minutes and bring them in. I don't think you can have a team of those people because I think you set a bad precedent for the morale of the team. Again, I'm not saying that's the whole case with everybody, but Sergino Dest is one where it's not like he's knocking on the door. He is completely out at AC Milan, right? And so for the foreseeable future, he is not going to get better through games played and develop as a player, maybe in training. And so you get a chance now. You bring him in. You say, "All right, is he on the mark or is he off the mark? If he's off the mark, hey man, you're super important. but you got to get your club situation sorted out because that's what merits your call up, and that's what's going to bring the best out of you. That makes you the Sergino Dest that we know is potentially there.
Okay, just to put a button on this, I'm using Sergino Dest as an example because based on his situation. I think Sergino Dest is an incredible player, and when you think about talent, he's one of the most talented players we have in our whole pool. There's no question. But I just wanted to have this part of the conversation because I think it's an interesting precedent to potentially set. And obviously we don't have a full-time manager, and I wonder how Anthony Hudson, the interim manager, manages that per se. All right, that said, I'm going with Joe Scally. I know that Kai, loyal follower, we love you, Kai. Thank you so much for the support over this last year plus. I'll say Scally over Dest because sometimes you have to see if there's better fits at times. Not to say, listen, when Dest is healthy and sharp and in form, of course, he's going to start. But in this particular situation, I think it's a good opportunity to see if Scally can be helpful in a low block. Maybe he does connect better with a Gio Reyna in front of him or whoever is going to start, right? That connection between who's going to start in front of one of our wing backs or outside backs is important as well. So there's a couple things to take into that. So I'm going to say, I'll go Turner in goal because I just think it would be super weird to go Zach Steffen after he got left out of the World Cup. And then he would be the number one in our first game back. So Turner starts. I got Scally. I got McKenzie, another guy that's in form. I got Tim Ream next to him. But I'm open to McKenzie potentially being somebody different. And Jedi. So that's my goalkeeper and back four. What's yours?
I've got same goalkeeper. Matt Turner. Almost said Zach Steffen just to create the drama. I've got Joe Scally at right back. This is a game where again, when I said Dest before, it was mostly on like I'm thinking through the lens of a coach saying, does he have it or does he not?
Right.
You'll see that within Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of this week. You would have been like, okay, not there. Or
Brian Reynolds is obviously tearing it up right now in Belgium. So.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd rather see Scally at this point, but I hope we get to see some Brian Reynolds.
What I like about Joe Scally is he's playing at Gladbach and he's consistently competing for minutes with Stefan Leiner. Stefan Leiner is like a legend of a player in terms of what he's done in his career. And he falls out of favor, and then he goes on these runs, and he holds these runs, and that level of competition and that mental edge, I think, is worth being rewarded for. He's at Gladbach are a massive club. You know, it's not like it's a small club and he's, Brian Reynolds is in a small club where he's playing every week, going to get better in that situation. But I'm going with the edge too.
Scally. I'll give it. No problem there. Mark McKenzie, you got Miles Robinson, Austin Trusty. Trusty, I think bring him in, see how he fits in with the group. Miles Robinson just getting started in his MLS season. I think McKenzie's in full swing and probably in theory a little bit sharper because of how many games he's played so far leading into this. And then Tim Ream's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I have Austin Trusty or Mark McKenzie getting the start there. I want to go with Trusty, but I feel like it's a big gap to get him integrated into what they're trying to do. I think that's a big part of the national team right now is integrating them into the way in which we want to play. And when it's a game of consequence, Mark McKenzie's been there. I think Mark second guesses himself as we've seen in the past. And I think that can be killer at the national team level. Hopefully this run of games he's had all season long and a team that's battling for a championship and, aren't in the best of form in the last weeks. And he's going through all that is going to make him a much sharper player at the national team level. So I'll go with Mark McKenzie. I'll go with Tim Ream. And I'm going to go with Jedi Robinson at left back.
Okay,
and
so
again, you could tinker if you wanted to.
You could, because Grenada's not going to push us in the same way that maybe
you could go with a Dest or a Scally. You could play with that sort of thing. But again, maybe you're changing things. But if you're Coach Hudson, you're not really trying to be like, I'm going to show everybody how smart I am in this camp. You're like, no, I'm the interim. I'm going to go and continue to get the results that I know this team can get. Leave the tinkering for the next guy.
Okay, so in midfield, we'll go 4-3-3, I assume. Yeah. I will go first. I'll go because we saw Weston do it actually quite well with Leeds this past weekend, a double pivot of Yunus Musa and Weston McKennie. Okay. So and then whoever has the impetus or whoever has that space in front of them to attack and then join the attack, and the other one just sits. So I can kind of see it a very fluid double pivot. I don't think both of them have to hold. Ultimately, when we say defend in a 3, I actually think our defending in a 3 will be more based on our 2 center backs and our holding midfielder kind of flushing that out as our 3, and then we could probably take some more risks out wide. We saw El Salvador, or you didn't see it, El Salvador had a lot of success against Grenada earlier in the Nations League by attacking those wide spaces. So we obviously can take advantage of that with our wing backs and trying to defend a little bit more centrally and to slow down any counters. And then in front of them, I would go with Luca De La Torre. I just think he's been undeniable in his form right now. I think you want him on the field. I think his confidence is sky high. And I don't think there's any other room for him in the front 3, even though he plays a little bit more left-sided, left winger, left mid for Celta de Vigo. So I kind of see McKennie, Musa, and De La Torre, though. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a potentially Gio Central. I'd like to see that. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that would be one way to potentially mix that up. But I think that leaves Luca out. I kind of want to see Luca in.
Yeah, I'm actually going with the same central 3. My only difference is that I'm actually kind of getting out of that double pivot and maybe just having I guess it's going to be. I guess it's a fluid 3 at that point with those ones.
It's fluid.
But what I want is those 2 to be higher up. If there's one back, that person sweeps, is controlling the flow of the play.
Right.
That's maybe a Yunus Musa type that can come deeper to get the ball when we have it. And then I want to see Luca De La Torre and Weston McKennie way more connected to the front line. And that means little darting runs behind that back line. Luca De La Torre is very good at finding those little pockets in space.
So you have Yunus sitting then. You have Yunus as the 6.
I would say only because of the fact that I think we're going to have the ball mostly against a low block. And I want the ball on Yunus's feet to control that, to drive the ball forward, to come back deeper to get it, because he likes to come back deep and get it. Maybe you split the center backs and he's sort of that one that's in the build-up play where the center backs are split and he's coming back to get the ball to sort of start that build-up, right? And then I want to see, again, that triangulation between those 3 players all game long, that confidence to connect passes, 1 touch, 2 touch.
Yeah, they have to break the ball around. They need to break
so that, because if they don't play quickly, then then you're going to have your wingers coming in to find the ball. It's going to be super crowded. That we need to have a rhythm to the way that we play, and we need to be able to get our striker touches on the ball constantly. And if you're not moving, if you're just stationary, we're never going to find that top line where we can probe in, out the other side, in, out, little darting runs, combination play, and those types of things like that. So while I guess the double pivot does make more sense for space, I just want players more connected, more numbers around the ball.
Now. Yeah. No, I hear you. I think what's important to think about and keep in mind as you're watching this game is that I believe if I'm Grenada and I'm the head coach, Anthony Modeste, I'm telling my team, let's try to get to halftime at 0-0. That is probably one of the top 3 things I'm telling the team. Let's move the ball quickly. Let's try to hit them on the counter. If we can spring the attack, let's be organized. Let's not drop our lines too deep. Let's not have our midfield collapse onto our defensive line. That's kind of the tactics. And hey, by the way, let's get to 0-0 at halftime, and then we can readjust and try to sting them on a set piece or on a counter in the second half. So thinking about that, I agree with you that the double pivot doesn't sound right, but I just feel like they're just going to flip-flop as to who's going to be the 6. Sometimes it's Weston, sometimes it's Yunus. And that's how I think that we'll probably play it out. Potentially, we could see a Johnny Cardoso who plays a little bit more for Internacional in that spot. He can be more of a like for like for Tyler Adams and just sit. He's probably the only one that will sit out of all the ones more naturally than everybody else. So that is going to be interesting. I'm very curious about your front 3, Heath, but we have our second break for In Soccer We Trust coming up. So this is what we like to call a tease, everybody. So right after our last and final break of In Soccer We Trust, we're going to give you our front 3 that we think will start this game against Grenada. And then we're going to get into some other big news about SoFi Stadium potentially not being able to host the World Cup final because the field is not wide enough. What's a misstep? Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to the UEFA Europa League on Paramount Plus.
What a night!
Your home for more ultra-competitive, world-class soccer. Where Europe's elite and soccer's Cinderellas pump out that one-of-a-kind white-knuckle excitement that grows with every cut, every cross, and each and every... The UEFA Europa League. Stream every match live exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back, everybody, to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Heath Pearce and not Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies.
Where is that guy?
I don't know, man. He's probably on a private flight to one of his yachts in the Caribbean. I don't even know. Maybe he's heading down to Grenada just to sip on some Mai Tais after coming back from the Dominican Republic. We don't really know what Charlie Davies is doing, but we know he's working hard and having a good time. and we are very envious of that. Also, don't miss a second of action from the greatest club competition on earth. There's actually 2 of them, the Champions League and the Europa League. Follow the biggest stars from around the world like Karim Benzema, Victor Osimhen, Erling Haaland, Marcus Rashford, Angel Di Maria. I'm sure you've heard of a few of these players. They try to clinch continental glory. Stream every match from the Champions League and the Europa League live only on Paramount Plus. Try 1 month for free with the promo code ADVANCE. We are trying to give you the goods for free, so make sure you take advantage of this promo code. It is ADVANCE. That is Paramount Plus. All right, let's get into it, Heath. We did the tease.
Yes.
The front 3 for
You want me
this
to start?
game. Yeah, you start this time. You start. Who's your front 3 against Grenada? They're going to sit in a low block, 10 players behind the ball, 20 yards away from their goal. What are we going to do? Who's going to be there? And how are we going to make it happen? Go.
It's so funny because what we should be actually doing when we do these is starting at forward and then working our way back. Because I just feel like it's so hard at this point because I'm just seeing people standing in each other's lanes right now. When I look at our forwards compared to where our midfield 3 are going to be, is like, where's everybody going to fit on the field? Like where do we actually move and create spaces for each other? And I'm actually thinking about it through the lens of like, maybe we do need less structure. Maybe we do need those middle 3. If Yunus Musa or Weston McKennie drift out wide, like who's coming into those spaces inside, right? Because again, if we play with wing backs or full backs and they're high and that's pushing our wingers to come inside, where's everybody getting the ball? And that's about, obviously, timing, right? It's the timing of the buildup. It's the game becoming predictable in the buildup where you see the next play that's happening before it happens. So you pop into the space, and that means now this space is opened up and all that type of thing. But enough avoiding, Jimmy. Okay, I'm going to go with Ricardo Pepi.
With the obvious. Christian Pulisic starts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Pulisic's in on the left side, cutting in on his right. Yeah. It's really the 2 other spots that we're probably going to discuss here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ricardo Pepi up top. I think. I mean, it's just.
I'm actually I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to go with Daryl DK.
Okay.
Because I think that a way that we can hurt them, and it gives us a different dynamic because we will have other guys with Christian cutting inside, and you're creating those overlaps in the space for our wing backs to join the attack and whip in crosses. I think you're going to need, not that Pepi can't finish those. We've already seen him do it, and he's been doing it in real style with Groningen over the last few months. But I just think that DK is a different gravy and a little bit more physical, can hold up the ball. And I think his hold up play has been a lot better. And I think I want to give him a chance to see how he continues to fine tune that area of his game, because I think he makes great runs. I think the timing of his runs, he's getting better at pulling away from defenders. I want to see DK in there, and I think that he provides just a little bit of a different dynamic than a Ricardo Pepi.
I agree. I think, but I'm going with Ricardo Pepi because I think his movement in the box is dynamic. I think his ability to finish after his movement in the box is dynamic. I think they both create space for others by occupying the center backs, spinning off the shoulder, those types of things. My problem with hold-up play is that even when I look at this, when I think about our center striker, it's the hardest thing for me because we never get them the ball. They never get the ball in positions that when I remember playing, we played
let's
more
just whip it in and they can finish it off. And I think DK. Yeah.
And that's why I think some of those runs, that movement in the box is going to create the secondary chances for the team, right? One thing is to be able to make good runs and create separation from your defender to be able to put away chances, right? The next thing, the next part is that ball gets whipped in, you ran to the near post, ball happens, second ball pops out. What are we actually doing with that? So it's going to be up to them to continuously be busy swimming that line, making those thankless runs to create that space or secondary chances.
And the problem is, though, if Grenada sit that far back, there's not going to be any space for them to run into, which is the way I would play it if I was Grenada. Like, you want to take away that space in behind.
No, so there's no space in behind, but it's more movement in the box. I'm going to make that near post run.
No, I get you.
They're going to be set up, right? Grenada's going to be like, don't allow them to whip an early ball in behind their back line. Let's set up deep. Let's get into our spots. You're playing with a single striker, so your center backs are sort of splitting that person. Someone's got the near post, second defender is tracking, and that type of thing. But that movement is to occupy or clear space out for late runners, for other people to get in the box. And this is, again, why I want to see that connectivity between our attack, because we do not get the most out of our strikers. The personnel that we have used in our national team do not support or get the most out of our strikers. And maybe that's a role of, okay, who is our striker then?
Could be system-based.
Or how do we actually start
personnel?
that gets our strikers the ball more often or gets them involved in the build-up play more often? How do we get those entry points? Because like you said, if everybody's moving in front of the strikers, there's never really a passing lane into them. You know, when we played more direct or with 2 strikers before, you had less lanes blocked because your entry point was through 2 midfielders, wingers, and then 2 strikers. So that passing lane for a winger to spin out underneath as you played an entry ball into a striker was different. The game's also changed now, right? Where it's a little bit different, where the U.S. actually loses their own space by pressing higher and controlling the ball higher up the field and things like that. So I'm kind of vomiting information right now.
No,
I say on the right side, I'm actually going to go with Gio Reyna. And
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on Gio Reyna. So the only difference we have in our lineups is our strikers.
Yeah.
Whoever plays up top, DK or Pepe, I think it's imperative to watch how many touches they're getting, where they're getting their touches. Can they turn when they get their touches? Are they looking to turn? How are they creating that minimal space into something that is positive? Are we getting corners? Are we getting shots? Are they getting on the end of crosses? Are they doing those thankless runs?
Are we having fun?
I think that has to happen. That's part of it too.
But when I think about, again, Ricardo Pepi, and I go back to some of his best matches, he was good at making other players around him better, right? Holding up the play, laying it off, getting like Christian Pulisic driving inside to lay off a 1-2. Gio Reyna wants combination play. If you think about his willingness to drive inside, he wants technical players that can lay him the ball off. And if you don't, he's going to throw his arms up in the air and be mad about it. I'm just kidding. But he does want that combination play. And I think Ricardo Pepi has that cleverness of lay the ball off, spin out, create those little dynamic angles. Not to say that Daryl Dike doesn't, because I'm interested to see kind of how much he's developed as a player. He's obviously got a ton of tools. But I think in this first one, you could take some strategic risks, and I like Pepi there.
Okay. I respect that. And I
however,
well, I right now, I would say,
bless your heart, but
this is I would say right now, Daryl Dike is probably as confident as he's ever been, and he's healthy. And I want to see what that version of Daryl Dike looks like in this group. Not the one that looked a little nervous at times when he got his chance with the Gold Cup and ultimately led to him getting injured and having to pull out of the rest of that tournament. This is a different Daryl Dike. This is one that seems a lot more assured of himself and what he's trying to do and how he's creating space. And I really feel like he's starting to get into that thing where he's thinking about the game more than just himself, to your point. And Ricardo Pepi does this a little bit more, or has shown that he can already do it, where he's looking to bring other people into the game. Not that Daryl Dike wasn't, but it just felt like, and this is an isolated Daryl Dike. This is I'm a young player. I'm just I want to be good at my game and not necessarily thinking about everybody around you. You see glimpses of it with every player, of course. But can he do that consistently, where he can find that balance between when it's my time I'm going to take this ball and do something with it, and then recognizing this probably isn't my time to do that. I'm going to bring somebody else into the play. And that takes years. That takes years.
It does. But I did like that when I saw he looked desperate to score. And that leads to two things. You know, when you're a young player and you're desperate, those things, that leads to a shocker, or it leads to you being active. Now, I saw positive things from that selfish mentality from our striker that I remember Josie had, right? I'm going to run with this ball and I'm going to go make something of it. And then Josie learned over time, I'm going to hold up play. I'm going to do all these other pieces of the game that are going to make me like this bona fide starting striker in this national team for over a decade. And I think Daryl Dike's that hunger that he has when he gets the ball to go and do something with it, like you said, that's a fine balance. And he's got to add to like, oh yeah, this is a time where I just need to hold up play, lay it off simply, and get back up top or get in the box.
All right, this game kicks off on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find it on TNT or Universo for the Spanish language broadcast. A good friend of ours, DeMarcus Beasley, will be part of the TNT crew. I think Brian Dunseth got added, so excited for Brian.
What a guy.
I believe Kyle Martino is involved as well, Julie Foudy, and great crew there on the English-speaking side, and should be a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in to that. But now let's talk about some bigger news that just came out here, Heath. I don't know if it's
nothing bigger than our national team, Jimmy.
That's true. I take that back. Let's talk about some other news. And apparently FIFA has stated that SoFi Stadium in LA is too narrow to stage World Cup games. We've talked about this before, and I feel like this is an easy fix because if you have $1 gajillion, it shouldn't be that hard.
Rebuild it.
Yeah, you just reconfigure what you need to do that. But right now, currently, as it stands, SoFi is too narrow to host the World Cup games, World Cup final. I don't know if it was just the final or what, but I think it's World Cup games overall. They got to figure that out. Bad news for Southern California. Does that mean it's going back to the Rose Bowl? Which city do you think should stage the 2026 World Cup final? It's probably between MetLife Stadium in New York or New Jersey, which holds 82,000. I just don't know if you want to play outdoors when it could be.
No, that's why it's LA or Texas.
It's
LA
got to
or
be Dallas.
Yeah.
AT&T Stadium holds 80,000 with a tractable roof. I don't even know if they'll open it because Texas in the summer. I think you could start the game, kick off at like 12 or 1 p.m. local. That means more of a global audience can see it live. And I think because you can control the environment, so it was either SoFi or AT&T, and that's where we decided. But this is I think it's just forcing SoFi to get their act together, who are probably like, do we really have to do this? Kind of annoyed by the whole thing. But I mean, you can't pass up the opportunity to host World Cup games. And then more importantly, the World Cup final. So I think they're going to figure this out, but who knows?
Yeah. No, I agree. I know we've covered this in detail and no new information has come out. Just the fact that, people naturally expected it to come back to LA again. But if you remember when they released that first graphic, it said SoFi in the graphic. It did not say Los Angeles. It was weird. It was one of like the only 2 cities that mentioned the actual stadium in the city that they announced. Otherwise, it was like, Philadelphia. And that was all that you saw there for hosting games. And it was like Los Angeles, SoFi Stadium was like the clarification early on because of the Rose Bowl implications. But yeah, I think you need to be indoors at that time because you need to play at a time of day that is for a global audience. It's the biggest.
Yeah,
it will be the biggest soccer. It'll be the biggest sports match ever. This World Cup will be the biggest sporting event ever. And that match will be the biggest match ever. So you need to obviously cater to the global audience. And then
Croatia and Morocco are going to be in the final.
I know.
They're not going to get the Brazil.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll be at the US's consolation game, playing for third place. So
that would be that would be quite an accomplishment for us because I don't think this 48-team World Cup is going to be that easy to navigate. All right, final thoughts before we let everybody go so they can enjoy their next couple days before this game kicks off. Heath Pearce, and what I want from you, I'm going to give you some rules here for these final thoughts. Who's going to be captain for the U.S. with Tyler Adams out, and what do you think the final score is going to be against Grenada? I think your choices are Matt Turner, Tim Ream. Would you give it to Weston McKennie? Christian Pulisic, probably the obvious choice, but give me your captain and what the final
I kind of like the Ream story. Like, just keep going with this, giving him more. Like, give him the captain's band, the leader on the field. I generally tend to like a midfielder or a defender as a captain.
Same.
Because they're likely not to be subbed out. They're also, just a little bit different mentality, Jimmy.
Producer Alex says Gio Reyna for captain, which is hilarious.
I mean, you could swing big and be like, showed the right thing. No, that I don't think that'll happen. But Tim Ream captain. And what was your other question?
Final score.
I'm saying 4-0.
4-0. Yeah.
No, actually, no. I was thinking about this in the context of a home game. I'm saying 2-0. It's an
away game.
Yeah, they're tough.
I'll say 3. I'll say 3-0. But we got to score pretty early. If we score early, they could open up the floodgates.
Yeah,
if they can get it to 0-0, then I could see your 2-0 come into life as we scrape together a goal on a set piece or something, and then hit it.
I just say it through the context of my own trauma of playing away games where I'm like,
I get it. I get it.
But
yeah, I can see. I'll say 3-0.
Barbados 8-0 at home, no problem. And then it's like, you're grinding. They hit the crossbar, they hit the post. They're like 17th corner in a row, and you're like, we're gonna lose this game. You're like 1-0. Okay, Eddie Lewis, score it one for us. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes they do end up being pretty tight, especially if they gain confidence going into the game. If they do hit the crossbar, that they can run with us. But I just think we're going to have too much talent. We'll overwhelm them at some point. I like 3-0. I'll go 3-0. And I think that Christian Pulisic will end up being the captain, though. It would be cool to see Tim Ream get to wear the armband. All right, everybody. That is it. That's the show. I'm cutting you off, Heath Pearce.
Perfect.
And usually I save those cutoffs for Charlie Davies, but I saved it for you here at the very end. So on behalf of producer Des, producer Alex, I guess Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies, Heath Pearce, and me, Conradinho Conrad, thank you for listening and watching in Soccer We Trust as always. And we'll see you Friday right after the game ends. And hopefully we do the business in real style. We'll see you then. Later.